Alright, so welcome back. I'm really excited now because we're going to finally do something a little bit different. Instead of just hearing me yap about texts, we're actually going to read some texts. In the next 3 segments, we'll be looking at different hymns from the Rig Veda that contain some really important and fascinating myths of Indra, Agni, and Soma. These are some of the oldest specimens of mythological literature that we have from India and indeed the world. Remember, the Rig Veda is going to go back to at least 1200 BC or so, and keeping in mind the kind of Indo-European prehistory, we can even push some of these myths back, maybe even to like 4000, 5000 BC, who knows. As we're reading them, keep in mind our like recurring key themes: identity, truth, power, death, trauma, violence, all of that. And let's see what these myths might be saying about them. So let's begin with Indra, who's the kind of most prominent and most important of the Vedic deities. The best way to characterize Indra, I think, is that he's kind of like the ideal representation of the early Vedic warrior king man. He's the king of the gods, and in this capacity he protects the gods in the same way that our rulers are supposed to protect us. So in this way he's kind of an exemplar, maybe, for royalty. Consider, for example, this verse from Rig Veda 132:15. Bearing the mace in his arms, Indra is the king of him who travels and of him who is settled, of the horned and the hornless. And just he alone as king rules over the different peoples. Like a rim, the spokes of a wheel, he encompasses those. Note a couple of things here. The subjects who are being ruled by Indra are those who travel and those who are settled. This reflects the semi-nomadic lifestyle of the early Vedic communities, right, where they would be kind of settled for half the time and roam with their cattle for the other half. We can also get a sense, I think, of the kind of martial and masculine power that was associated with being a leader, a ruler in this ancient society. And we get this beautiful metaphor, really, of a king who serves as the rim of a wheel, and that keeps the spokes, his subjects, sort of all in line together and functioning as a whole, right? This becomes actually a standard trope in India for describing what kings do. Even the Buddhists use it to explain the role of the Buddha to his community. And if you look on the Indian national flag, you'll also see a wheel with spokes. Another feeling that we can get from this myth of Indra is of a Vedic identity that's constructed around difference. The enemies here of Indra are also our enemies, the Dasyus, or the non-Vedic communities who don't do Vedic sacrifices, who don't have the Rig Veda. One hymn praises Indra like this: "From heaven on high you sent fire burning down to the Dasyu. You favored the recitation of the presser and the praiser." The presser here is the Soma presser. This kind of identity construction is most pronounced in the myths of Indra, actually, indicating how important leaders and kings were how important they were in defining one's group identity. Finally, there's something kind of unmistakably masculine about Indra. He's a soma drinking bull of a man, right? He's a hero, and the Vedic sacrificers show a kind of submissive loyalty and humility towards him. Take this following verse, for example. Advaryus, bring the soma to Indra. With the tankards, pour here the exhilarating stock, because the hero is ever desirous of his drink. Offer to the bull, he wishes just that. The Advaryus, again, remember, are Yajurveda priests who do all the actual physical manual labor in the sacrifice. The Rig Veda priest is like instructing him here to offer soma to Indra in order to quench this bull-like hero's desires. Right? It reminds me kind of maybe of how we treat like NBA or NFL or NHL superstar athletes, right? We celebrate their prowess by sort of dousing them with champagne at the clubs. I don't know. In both cases, the mythic persona of Indra or the mythic persona of pro athletes kind of create aspirations or blueprints for how us ordinary people wish we could orient our lives. We wish we could be like Indra or like LeBron James. I don't know. So let's look at some of the more famous myths now of Indra, or at least as revealed in the Rig Veda hymns. The most famous of these is Indra as the dragon slayer. This myth is found in almost all cultures of the world, actually. The story itself is really simple and straightforward. There's a demon named Vritra who takes the shape of a cobra, and he's coiled himself around a mountain and trapped all the river water from coming down the mountain. To solve this problem, Indra gets up, drinks a swig of soma, and sets off with his gangsters called the Maruts. They have a huge battle with Vritra. Indra slays the cobra with his Vajra mace, this Vajra weapon, and Indra breaks open the mountains, lets the waters flow down freely. That's how the story goes. The narrative structure is like that. Let's see how the myth is revealed in the hymn itself. Now I shall proclaim the heroic deeds of Indra, those foremost deeds that the mace wielder performed. He smashed the serpent, he bored out the waters, he split the bellies of the mountains. He smashed the serpent resting on the mountain. For him, Dwashtar had fashioned the resounding sun-like mace. Like bellowing milk cows streaming out, the water went straight down to the sea. Acting the bull, he chose for his own the soma. He drank of the pressed soma among the Trikadukas. These might be the Maruts. The generous one took up his missile, the mace. He smashed them, the firstborn of serpents. When you, Indra, smashed the firstborn of serpents, and then beguiled the wiles of the wily ones, then giving birth to the sun, the heaven, and the dawn, since that time you've surely never found a rival. Indra smashed Vritra, the very great obstacle, whose shoulders were spread apart, with his mace, that great weapon. Like logs hewn apart by an axe, the serpent would lie embracing the earth, soaking the earth in his blood. For like a drunken non-warrior, he challenged the hard-pressing great hero, who is that silvery drink, Soma. Vritra did not withstand the attack of his weapons. His mouth was destroyed by that shattering blow. He whose rival was Indra was completely crushed. We can see maybe a bit of Vedic glorification of violence here, when it's directed at our enemies, and when it's Indra, our hero, who's doing it. Kind of like a Marvel action movie, I don't know. The hymn keeps going on, actually. Handless and footless, he gave battle to Indra. Indra smashed his mace on his back. A steer who tried to be the measure of a bull, Vritra lay there flung apart in many places. Note the kind of masculinity thing that's going on here with steers and bulls. Delivering themselves to Manu, the waters go over him like a split reed lying that way. Those very ones whom Vritra in his greatness once surrounded, at their feet lay the serpent. Indra doesn't stop there, but now he's going to go after Vritra's mama as well. The strength of Vritra's mother ebbed. Indra bore his weapon down upon her. The mother was above, the son below. Danu lies like a milk cow with her calf. Now it's going to get kind of weird, I have to say. In the middle of the turning posts of the never-standing, never-resting waters, his body sank down. The waters move widely over the private parts of Vritra. He whose rival was Indra lay there in the long darkness of death. The waters stood still. Their husband was the Dasa, this Vritra. Their herdsman was the serpent, hemmed in like the cows by the bunny. This is actually an allusion to another myth. There was a set of cows who were trapped in a cave by a non-Vedic tribe, a community called the bunnies. What was the hidden opening for the waters that Indra uncovered after he smashed Vritra? You, Indra, then became the tail of a horse when he struck his fangs at you. You, the god alone. You conquered the cows. And, O champion, you conquered Soma, you set loose the 7 rivers to flow. And now here we come to the end of the verse. Neither lightning nor the thunder, neither the mist nor the hail that he scattered repelled Indra for him. When Indra and the serpent fought each other, the generous one achieved victory also for all later times. Whom did you see, Indra, as the avenger of the serpent when fear came into your heart after you smashed him? And when you crossed over the 99 flowing rivers like a frightened falcon through the airy realms? Bearing the mace in his arms, Indra is the king of him who travels and him who is settled, of the horned and the hornless, and just he alone as king rules over the different peoples. Like a rim, the spokes of a wheel, he encompasses those. Now, there's a lot to talk about in this myth, and maybe it's best if I don't tell you what I see, but I'd rather like to have you try and find your own impressions of what we just looked at, of what this story might have meant to the early Vedic communities who would have recited this and hymn by heart and who would have heard it at their Soma parties and so on. Think of the different scenes of death and trauma, the masculinity that's going on, the bravado, and then a sudden kind of hint of fear that we see at the end when suddenly Indra runs away like a frightened falcon. What's up with that? Right? It's kind of a puzzle. And like I said, rather than just preaching to you what I think the truth is about what Indra's myths mean, I'd rather hear what you have to say about it after you yourself contemplate this kind of merger between our world and the other world. So let's stop here, take a break, and then come back and we'll look at 2 more set of myths, myths of Agni and Soma, to wrap up this unit on Vedic mythology.